you should not buy a new camera until you watch this. So we are talking about phones versus cameras because over the years I've been asked, when should I upgrade from my phone to my camera? And I have someone that I lovingly forced to go through that process joining me, Stanley Orchard. Stanley, how are you doing?
Dude, I am doing fantastic, Andrew. How are you doing, man? It's great to see you here.
It is great to be live again. Boy, what has changed from our last live stream, which I'll have linked in the description, as well as the article we might reference a few times. And so, Stanley, it was an interesting challenge because I know that you, for a long time, were strictly a phone man. You filmed and edited on your phone. These days, you've switched it up. What are your thoughts? I have to ask.
Okay, well, my thoughts on that. You can't go that broad with a question like this, Andrew. I mean, you're asking me, that's going to take, you're talking about 8 years worth of filming, 600
Just
videos all
condense it
done with a
down
film.
really quick, you know?
Yeah. So it's a difference. And I tell you what, so we're going to be breaking that all down over the course of this entire stream. There's going to be a ton of different things to be talking about, a little nuance to a lot of different things. I can say, like, I am loving, like anybody would, I am loving now, filming with a camera and actually dealing with camera settings, at codecs and actual editing software. I love it. I don't want to go back, but there's a caveat. There's some catches to that. I do still use the phone for a lot of stuff, a lot of primary content on some of the channels that I work for. So there's still value in that for anybody who's thinking about switching. Just know.
And you're actually using your phone to be seeing the chat, which I see a few people, and we have a couple of questions from just different places, some SEO stuff. You know me, Stanley, got to look it up.
All about it.
One of the questions that I see around this topic of when they're trying to switch from phone to camera is the learning curve. Now, you in that article, and we've talked about this, you spent what, 8 years, $100 investment on what you have and have been using. Yeah. So, you have 8 years of built-in knowledge with that phone, and you're primarily, correct me if I'm wrong, using an Android too.
Yeah, just Android.
I would say that when you are, transitioning, one of the limits of having a phone is that, one, it is a powerful phone, but it's also a million things as well. What has been the differences in having that kind of one device for everything versus one device for the one thing?
When you're doing it on the phone, you're real limited on what you can do. You can't do frame by frame edits, which is kind of glorious, right? Like I don't want to do frame by frame edits on a lot of the stuff. I don't want to have to do a real serious color correction. I can't do it. So I train myself, early on to capture this stuff well in the filming process. And that switches over well. With that knowledge of being able to film and capture the things that you need to, I learned very early on not to curse in videos. And the way that I taught myself was having to edit out the curses. So I want to keep it G-rated, might have some fun, but you see the difference in monetization when you curse versus when you don't. So I have fun bleeping it out, but I limit it because it's so time consuming sitting there and trying to, with, your fat fingers on a touchscreen, trying to pinch and make your way into making a tiny little edit like that. And it's the same for like thumbnails and, audio, everything else.
Well, that's also like a difference between, touchscreen on your phone and touchscreen on the camera. So I think let's start with your phone era, right? Before we go too deep into the camera, let's start with what phone were you working with, filming on over those 8 years?
Dude, when I started, I've actually got it right here because I keep it as a keepsake on me. I was using just like at the time, I didn't want any technology. I wanted just like a flip phone. And I upgraded. I bought it off of eBay for $50, a Galaxy S6. And I thought like, oh, shoot, this thing it shoots in HD. It does 30 frames per second. And it has the, I could do all the editing. I could get all the apps that I needed, something I couldn't do with, the phone that I had. So $50, I was like, this is a good investment. This is what I need to be doing. What I didn't realize is it didn't have, like, this was the model, and the reason it's $50 is they took away the scan disk slot, so it's just the
SD
internal
card
memory.
slot.
Yeah, I had to learn that lesson the hard way.
So that's one of those limits though, because like a lot of phones used to have an SD card slot similar to a lot of cameras, but when they removed it, I remember, you know, my partner, her mom is an Android user, and she was sticking with her older phone for a while, and she clung on to that SD card.
Yeah.
And when it came time for her to upgrade, we had to break the news that, you know, unfortunately, not due to anything you did, but manufacturer changes, you know, to keep up with other phones, they have removed that. Yeah. So yeah, that even in that's one of those things you don't think about. I mean, you guys also lost headphone jacks, which is another thing.
I think that was one of the selling points, actually. Yeah, it still had the headphone jack.
Wow.
So I was able to use mics on it, and that was glorious.
And now, I know you're using DJI mics. There are mics that you can use when it comes to, you know, phones nowadays. I don't want to discount it, but those are all those little things that over time that can definitely make you think, you know, about it. So, you know, you talked about $50 on the phone. How much do you think you spent when you started filming on phones? I'm just genuinely curious.
Oh, yeah, I can tell you, I don't think, I know I spent less than $120, probably right about $100 for the first 2 years.
Wow.
And that was that phone for 50. It was, I got a waterproof case for like $10.
Considering you do fishing content, that checks and makes sense.
Yeah. I wanted to try to get underwater footage, and I ridiculously thought that case was going to work so I could get underwater footage, and I did. But you go back to those old videos and you'll realize the limitations of like a simple case like that, because it's touchscreen. The water is always pressing on it, so it acts like a finger doing this the whole time. So I learned to put a sugar packet in the screen. Like I couldn't see the screen, but I could hit record and be underwater, and I could get my footage. So
wow. I mean, but that's ingenuity, right? And like even that, to do that with the, you know, I have the cameras here. We actually share the same camera, but to do that with this, that's a different level of stress, right?
Yeah.
Because that's also something I think when it comes to a phone. And if you're just joining us, because we have some people, you know, one of the beauties of a phone is phones are kind of easier to replace to a lot of people, at least, you know, in their head, because a lot of people have gotten into that cycle of upgrading regularly. A lot of people have gotten into the mindset of, you know, I'll own this phone for a little bit or until updates stop, and then I upgrade anyway. But for cameras, I mean, I usually say cameras are two kind of investments. And Stanley, I'm sure you've learned this. There's the camera body itself, and then there are the lenses.
Yeah.
And one of the things on a phone is you, with your original phone, you only had one lens to work with, right?
Yeah.
So when I'm assuming you've upgraded your phone since then.
I did one time in that entire process. I updated in 2019 to the S10 Plus, and that's the phone that I'm using to this day. I was considering but I was at an impasse earlier this year, late last year, where I was like, okay, I'm probably at a stage now where I need to upgrade because of limitations in the cameras. That the camera was working just fine for whatever 6-7 years now, but now they have telephoto lenses on a phone, and my thought was either I go with the newest model flagship and I get something that gives me a telephoto lens, or I go all in on what's real, you know, on cameras, and actually take that next step.
Yeah. And I love that, you know, even when you think, you know, with your phone, you still got to upgrade, you know, like there's not one size fit all here. And I think that's an important part of the discussion. And, you know, you talked about needing to upgrade with the cameras. With some of the apps that we both shoot on Sony, so I'll use Sony as the example, though Panasonic has a great app, and then I know Canon has an app. You can actually take your photos from this camera, upload it to your phone, and then post those. So like that's another way you can use these worlds in tandem.
Yes.
And I think, you know, you've been doing YouTube for a long time. I mean, how long have you been on YouTube on your channels now?
Yeah, we started in I started in 2016, but I may you've seen creators do this. I don't know why I took this path. I'm glad that I did, but it was a weird path. In 2016 is when I got the phone, and that's when I'm like, I'm gonna start filming, I'm gonna start learning, I'm gonna start figuring this all out. And in 2016, I spent 2 years, like 18 months, where I was learning cinematography with a phone.
Good.
I was watching just an insane amount of videos from you and Nick and Roberto, all the guys. I mean, that's what I did. I replaced all my video game time, television, listening to the radio. I replaced it all with just YouTube tutorials for like 18 months solid straight. And then I decided to start filming. It was, I should have started practicing at that time. I didn't. We filmed our first video in 2017.
Fair enough. And I actually think, you mentioned you don't know how you did it this way. I think it's a normal thing. Creators don't know if they're going to like doing this. And it's a scary proposition. If I don't like the thing I'm putting my time into, that could be huge for a lot of creatives. So I actually don't blame you for not being sure on that investment, especially because when you're getting started, I think it's very scary. And I think it's interesting that you mentioned you had the gear, but you didn't actually start using the gear until a little bit later.
Yeah.
Is there a reason for that? Was it just watching and consuming, or you were just waiting? Or I'm just curious on that.
I don't even have a real, I don't have a real answer for you on that. There's not I can't look back on and say, oh no, I was making sure.
You had a
BS.
vision.
No, I wasn't. I did some practice videos for fun. They're like unlisted on my channel. Originally, part of the thing was YouTube was supposed to open up time for my family. I was working in the oil field. I was doing 90 to 130 hour weeks, and I wanted YouTube to get me away from that. So the idea was that this had to be a family endeavor. And so the first, everything is family oriented, but there are also unlisted videos on my channel where I've filmed family, birthdays and things like that we have like in a private playlist for the family. And that first year was all just family videos, and kind of that was my practice.
But hey, testing and getting better is part of it. You're gonna need to test in some way, and I'm glad you did it there.
Yeah.
I see from Jim, shout outs to Jim, an incredible
Jim?
creative. I tend to study for way longer than I should before I try something out, so I totally understand that. And I think that's an incredibly normal kind of place. What I usually tell creatives, and Stanley, I think you've heard me say this once or twice, but it is a sponge with too much water is essentially worthless. It's knowing when to release some of that stored knowledge, when to give it a shot. So I'm glad that you actually went out and started doing it. And I saw a thing on Reddit discussions. You know me, I do a lot of research. And one of the things was a lot of people are embarrassed by shooting on phones. Were you ever embarrassed by it? What are your thoughts on someone who might be embarrassed by using their phone?
You know what? In every conversation ever, I am proud. I put it at the bottom to this day. I put it in the bottom of the video at the very beginning of the video. There's just a little disclaimer, and I try to make it funny. And it says, filmed and edited on a really crappy old phone. I make fun of myself. But I will say, like in these conversations and YouTube conversations, I'm outright with it. Oh yeah, I did all that, but I did it on a phone, on an S6, an old phone. But I will say, where it gets embarrassing. I have been embarrassed where I have a vision. I'm filming a video, and I have this thing scripted out. I've spent a month figuring it out. I know exactly what I'm going to do. I know the shots. I've got the whole thing down, and I am out there in a public place, filming fishing vlogs is where I cut my teeth. And I'm out in a public place and I'm filming this video, and I'm just like that dork with a phone. Nobody takes me serious until they see the video. So that's where it gets a little embarrassing.
And I think that, it's not embarrassing, but I think it goes to show that a lot of times we will overrate certain aspects of the creative process, because there's an old adage, we all hear it, but we rarely practice it, which is the best camera is the one you have on you. Now, that there a lot of people give criticism to that you can't give the same two creatives the same camera and get the same results. I don't think that's what it's trying to say. I think it's trying to say that it's better to take the shot with what you have than not take it at all. Yeah. And I'm glad that you decided to make videos with what you had. And, I think it's interesting that you started with a used phone, because that's something I tell a lot of creatives. If you're trying to get into this, used gear is a great way to get started. Get it from a reputable site. There are lots of them. I'm a big B&H photo man. I am a big, I'm in LA, so Sammy's Camera is out here. There are lots of different locations. There's Adorama. There's a lot of places. MPB, which I've done reviews on, and at least selling gear to them. I finally bought a piece to actually do that review on how it was like. But I say that for me, when it comes to used gear, it is one of those things that It's ironic I'm telling you this, Stanley, because everything we bought you was net new, and I will call that out. I will be the first to say. But the reason we bought Stanley new gear was just so that we could make sure he had a baseline. But when it comes to lenses, that's where we've been like really leaning more into the used side of the house. Because if you don't know, and if you've never heard this is an old film school thing. You date the camera body, you marry the lens system. What do I mean by that? That means that your camera body is going to change over time, but those lenses, they're your investment for the long term. I often describe it as like when you buy a piece of furniture from IKEA, hey, it may last you years and years and you love it and it's forever. Or you might go to a furniture store and buy a specific piece for that need. So there is a difference here. And the problem I find with a lot of phone shooters, and I would love to get your thoughts on this, Stanley, and you kind of hinted at it. What do you do when you need that new camera? You know, what do you do when like the platforms change how they read and things like that? What are your thoughts on that?
It's a big decision. You know, I because I started off with a $50 cell phone off of, eBay. And actually this is the reason that we upgraded, was because I destroyed that phone. We had a waterproof case that broke when I was filming, and that destroyed the phone. I lost the video. Sure. But I lost one video. I lost a $50 phone, no big deal. And I was like, you know what? We had earned enough money at that point to where that money went into the investment for the next phone. It was nice. I got to upgrade. And I would have a very serious conversation. Like before we went into all of this, I would have a very serious sit down conversation with my wife. If I was upgrading to a camera and lenses and editing software and all the things that are necessary for that move, that conversation isn't just the financial, investing in it. It's what we can accomplish with that, because you can't just get like the Sony camera. You got to get the waterproof housing. You have to be prepared for it. If I'm using this for fishing vlogs, and it's not the purpose of this camera at the moment, but if I was going to, I have to kind of be prepared for that thing to not survive a trip. So for what we do, that's part of the conversation. And you got to be realistic about those sorts of things when you make that transition.
I mean, what kept you going on with just a phone for so long? Was it the thought of your need of filming water-based and then land-based, or like what was your thought process?
It was the ease was the main thing. The primary thing that kept me on phones for so long was how easy it was. I could film, I could get all the shots I wanted. If I destroyed the camera, and I am notorious for destroying equipment. I go through a tripod a year. I have destroyed.
I saw it live at Vid Summit. He somehow broke a piece of his gear. He laid it on the table, picked it up, and it fell apart.
That's
like, Stanley,
that's what I do. That's what I do.
We were all flabbergasted. I was like, what happened?
I forgot about that. Yeah, I break things, man. These hands. You derailed me on that.
No, I mean, I didn't mean to derail you, but I do think that, we were talking about like what kept you on the phone so long. I think that ease of use, it makes a lot of sense. I mean, I know people in our own membership on YouTube I talk to in the KDCC community. Emperor Sky Studio says, note to self, never let Stanley touch my
I'll be the first one to tell you. Yeah.
But, going back to the community side of it all, is that I've had people say how hard it is to learn on a legit camera, because it is a different kind of learning. What we see in our eyes and what our camera sees, one or two different things. And a lot of these phones have used, machine learning, aka, AI before the marketing twist. And so they're used to giving pretty good images out of it. You can go deeper into some of them and go get some pro settings where it's like raw and you can fully control it. But I get why people like that ease, like yourself, and I actually like it too. So I've been using my iPhone a lot more for filmmaking. No one's called it out, but it makes me wonder, has anyone ever commented on the quality actually on your videos, or has noticed it's on a phone outside of you saying it?
Yeah, I have received comments, and every single one of them, 100% of them, it was always positive. It was always, I can't believe you're doing this on a phone. What kind of camera are you using? It looks awesome. And it a lot of times what it is, it has nothing to do with the camera. It has everything to do with the shot. I love when we upgraded to the S10 Plus, the upgrade from the first one to that phone was the slow motion capability. It had
Oh
that.
yeah.
I could do slow and I told everybody, like I announced it when I got that phone. I was like, you be ready because I'm going all in on slow motion footage. And it was anytime it was that in the time lapse, those two things. So anytime anything moved slow, I would record it in a time lapse. And anytime anything moved fast, I would get that shot with the slow motion. And it was that was the thing that impressed people. They're like, wow, that is a crazy camera shot. That's amazing. What camera are you using? And it was just the phone. But never had anybody say, not once did anybody ever say, you should really upgrade. That doesn't look good.
Now, if your audio was bad, like some viewers helpfully told me, I love Windows. I'm having this weird issue with the latest version of Windows where it decides, hey, your mic level you perfectly set. We're not going to pay attention to that. We know what you want. So I often say that to that point, I think that if the lighting is good, if the shot composition's good, and the audio is good, especially for what you're doing, people usually don't mind that much. And I think that's something I've had to explain to creatives is like, get the shot. If it's on your phone and you can match it well enough, that's all that matters. I'd rather you do something like that where you can improve it than you don't film it at all. And I think that's a trap that's easy to fall into. So I have to ask, because Jim had a really good point, and he said, if I filmed in the water, I'd definitely be using my phone or an action cam. Phones do feel more replaceable. Did an action cam ever kind of cross your mind or path when it came to doing that?
Yeah, so I have destroyed a few. Not even gonna lie about that. And I've had luckily I've had some sponsorships with a few
action cams, right? Not phones or both. I mean, I don't
both. Just you name it, I've destroyed it. I need that.
That's shirt. That's me with software. I find a way to break things that no one breaks in a unique way.
I had when the GoPro 360 first came out.
Wow.
I got it right when it came out. And the very first trip I used that thing, it went overboard.
A
moment of silence for that poor camera. The very first time I used it. Yeah.
I was like, I thought you were like going to say, I got to use it for a couple of shoots and then no, first time.
First time. Never saw the footage from that poor camera. And I think GoPro had an insurance thing or something. Thank God. And obviously, that was one of the things that we know to get the insurance on stuff when we're doing that. So we got it. We got that. GoPros, they're great. I will say, so GoPros are great, but when you're underwater, you're talking about it. So you're in the water and the water's doing this all the time. You're always moving and your action camera is doing that. And they're great about that horizon stabilization. But if you are taking that camera and you're trying, like you see a really cool fish, especially if it's small or you're deep down and it's darker, bluer tones, you lose the reds. That shot is still doing this, and that is impossible to get a shot of a pretty little fish or something when it's underwater. Sure. And as much as I love the GoPros and I do use them as a peripheral camera on everything that I do, if I'm underwater and I'm filming stuff, I'm still using the phone. And the reason for that is because of slow motion. True. It takes away all of that movement, all the fish swimming by. We have a whole series of Cozumel videos that are just gorgeous because of that cell phone footage underwater. It's just kicked the heck out of GoPros.
And look, I mean, GoPro have their time and place, but I have to agree with Ember Sky in the chat where he says, always get the action cam coverage. Things happen to them. Look, I've used to film a few action cams. They're pretty good, but I think there's actually a couple of steps between going, from your phone to, a full-on camera system. And one of those is the DJI Pocket system. I've been recommending that more to creatives who are looking kind of for a first camera because it has the gimbal on it. It does really good 4K. It's, it does all the fun specs and it's got a built-in gimbal. Pardon me. You drink water, but you still can have problems. But it's a good reminder. 1 second. But it's one of those situations where even though, cameras are great and phones are great, that in-between step of upgrading there for vlogging or doing things is good. But for your use case, you could also just put those phones on a gimbal too and get even more use before, putting it on a larger camera, which those gimbals cost even more. So there is a lot of cost benefit to staying on the phone for a little bit longer than people might know.
Yeah. And there's, we use a GoPro clamp mount for the phone I have a couple of different I have a cage. I have the GoPro clamp mount, the Octopus tripod, and a tripod. Because every mount has its own particular moment when it's useful, and I use them all for the phone. The exact same things you'd use on a GoPro, I use for the phone.
Fair enough. We have some people saying I've been eyeing the DJI Nano small SOOC looks pretty decent in wireless mics. I find the Insta360, which is another camera that has come out over the years. So, people are telling us, and please keep sharing your thoughts and opinions. I love hearing them. Stanley and I are really enjoying this conversation because at the end of the day, these are the things that keep us kind of interested in going on these topics. And one of the reasons I wanted to talk about this is because I've been asked over the years, we get asked in the Discord all the time about these things. So if you're just joining, and I see we have a lot of people just joined, Stanley, hey, you have been with us for a while over at the KDCC. So I have to ask selfishly, what made you join the KDCC? I think I know, but let's hear it.
I mean, that's easy and fairly obvious for anybody who's been there. It's that community. You have people like Jim, you have people like Ember Sky, you have these people who are knowledgeable. The group think tank, whenever I have a question, and I have questions all the time, like how do you repair a broken tripod? I can go in there and there's people with experience. Like it's not just like shouting from the heaven, like one person giving you all that information. Like you can go in there and you can get answers from anybody. You have the newsletter on the blog and the newsletter on the website. Like the information that comes across there, that's where I go to get my information on YouTube updates. And there's like an update once a week these days.
Yeah.
So that's where I get all my information. And then if I, either the community and or that newsletter.
Well, thank you on that. Shout outs to Ike who writes it. Shout outs to Doug, friend of the community, Doug Houston. He's huge on that stuff. But no, I really appreciate it. I have to ask because, this whole conversation is this journey. And you kind of talk about it in the blog. We have links since you mentioned the blog. But what did I say to you that finally made you consider upgrading? Like, I know what I had to say, but like, when did it finally click for you?
Oh, you told me years ago that it was time to put on my big boy pants.
I did.
And I still waited a couple of years. And then you forced me, like, you're literally like, here, I'm going to put your pants on for you.
All right. It's time to get ready to go to school. And look, that was no shade on the phone. It was just, you had a client that had a specific need. And that's also something that I had to upgrade from my more consumer gear at the time to more professional cameras, was that I had a client that's like, hey, this is no longer acceptable for us, and we need you to upgrade. So they, like I did to you, and I will say this, I paid for the upgrade. I put my money where my mouth was.
I would say, so I'm the biggest proponent in the world of saying, do it on the phone. Everything you can do with the phone, blah, blah, blah. Stick with the phone until you have taken the phone to the point where it is holding you back. But I will say, because you're right. When that situation arose where there was a client who needed what I could do, but in a more professional, with using more professional equipment.
Right.
So upgrade to the camera just before that happens. Okay. Don't wait until you have absolutely run the camera into the ground, because I will say it was a little stressful. I got a little bit more gray hair when it was like, you have a client to work for and all you have to do is upgrade and learn how to use the upgrade. I wish I had had 2 months of practice before that happened.
But I think it goes to show that you should still be aware of the other gear out there, right? Because if someone asked me to be on my phone right now, thanks to like having conversations with you and using it more, I'd be ready. But ask me a year or two ago, I'd probably not struggled that much. But it would take me a little while to get to a point where I'm okay, good with this phone enough to get to that point. So I do think that's a very interesting conversation. I have to ask, I did say, how did you feel when I told you it's time to put your big boy pants on? I remember saying it, but I'm curious what you felt.
I was honored. Because, at that time, and to this day, I'm still real proud of the fact that we do a lot of what we do. Still 90% of what I'm doing is on the phone, and I'm real proud of that. I still put it in the video, filmed and dusted off with an old phone. And I'm proud of that. Like it's a limitation, and it's something that I'm proud of. But I'm proud that I was doing all of that. Like when you told that to me, it was reassuring. It was like the phone was a ceiling that I could break through. It wasn't holding me down. It wasn't like I was a great creator so long as I had a phone. It was like I could be a great creator, and it's time to move beyond the limitation. So
Yeah.
that was really nice to hear.
And the gear was, again, you still make great stuff using your phone. My thing is, when you had a client and they wanted more, that's something that also needs to be talked. You have to sometimes meet the desire of the client you work with.
Yeah.
I think that that's a conversation that's different. Like, there are some shots that as a photographer or videographer, you may have to go out and either, I'd recommend, if you don't plan to use it ever again, maybe rent the lens and experiment with it. For lens rentals, a huge one. But you have to have the right tools for the job. Stanley, you have done some construction work. If you go to a job and are like, hey, where are your tools? They would expect you to have the tools more so than you show up and not have them, right?
No, I mean, beyond that, half of the reason I've got half of the jobs that I have done with construction was simply because I had the tool. I didn't even have the best experience with some of them, but I had the tool and I had the ability to pull it off. You know, I could still do it. But that's kind of a barrier for entry, was having it at that point.
Right. I see that English Fun Zone, welcome back. Always great to see you.
Hey.
Says that they are using the Sony ZV-E10. I know you're using the Sony ZV-E10 Mark II, which has some differences, very minor, but they're important. And she was talking about, getting it to work like on a live stream is a bit scary for me. I'm using a webcam, which isn't. And that's what Stanley's using. And
this
when it comes,
my first time.
It looks great. It's funny.
We're breaking it in with Andrew right here because he was harassing me. He told me I had to put on my big boy pants.
I did. BB says it's nice to see Stanley in 1080p. I also think it's nice to see Stanley well lit, because when I watch you on your streams, man, you sometimes look like you're in a dark cave.
Yeah. Oh, just wait. I got to figure out I'm going to have to use makeup or something in the summertime when it's like 110 degrees.
Oh, boy. That's a thing I know.
Yeah.
That's the thing I know too well. I mean, I want to kind of go back to, we talked about your history with the phone. We're now in the conversations of what got you to go full camera. Were you excited or scared? Because, English Fun Zone talks about how she was a little scared with her live streaming camera. I'm genuinely curious. Were you where did you lean on that?
So I was scared. I have a thing where when I get scared of something, I have to push through that.
Sure.
Like I've never had a project that I wasn't able to accomplish in some form or fashion, right? Like I never just dropped something and couldn't do it. So it was a huge, scary thing moving over to it. And I had to pull, like, the KDCC was so wonderful in helping me, figure out some camera things. I had stupid questions to ask, and I got genuine, authentic answers. I appreciate that, but they were not next level questions. And so, I mean, it was scary, but it's real. Like, you have the capability of doing it. You can do this. You've done this. You're not walking in with zero experience. So there's a learning curve. Just push through it. You'll get there.
Yeah, but I want to say that, like, I find what most beginners, and this is a huge thing I was guilty of, that's why I built a community, is a lot of times when we're starting something, we're so afraid to ask a dumb question that we end up not even asking it.
Yeah,
and
I don't mind looking dumb.
I rather have I think it's more confident to have the ability to ask the question than to silently struggle. And if you're silently struggling, it's real. And I've been there. I would say, join communities where you feel comfortable. The reason that creators make these videos helping you is to help you. I would rather you ask that question than not. English Fun Zone asks, do I have a tutorial how to set it up? I actually do for live streaming, funnily enough. I made a video back in the day, so I can share that in the Discord later. And it goes to show, right? Like, if you didn't ask that question, I couldn't have brought that up. But it matters. Like, you talk about asking questions, Stanley. I'm so happy you did. Yeah. And we have some other comments here that I think are relevant. I have a used $25 webcam and a Lumet Mix G7. I get a similar 1080p image. I'm actually using my G7 right now to live stream. I may have to, unfortunately, retire it, not because I want to, but I've run this thing nonstop for over a decade, and it's starting to have some issues.
Oh.
But
good reason to have to upgrade.
But yeah, that's another reason you might have to upgrade is you run into limitations of maybe the camera gear is getting old. It's not working out the way it was. And speaking of not working out the way it was, I know that cameras on phones, and they can do this, but it's a little rarer. Overheating. We put you on a Sony. Have you dealt with overheating, Stanley?
Right out of the gate. Any problem that you could have, like any problem that you could, would, should have with a camera when you buy a camera for any reason at all, I experienced them all en masse right off the bat. The first time I was filming, and I was practicing, thank God. I mean, that's why we do it, right? Experimenting and practicing. And yeah, that thing wouldn't last 30 seconds.
Fair enough. Overheating. Oh no.
It was like 55 degrees outside. I was filming. I was in a gym, but a 55-degree gym trying to film, and it wouldn't go 30 seconds.
But that's one of those things where it comes to cameras, especially, Sony has had a little bit of a notorious history with it. There are some settings you can hit, which we worked on and we selected, but it can happen. And it was funny in that video I link to you that I'm going to send over to English Fun Zone. I actually talk about overheating with the camera, and during the video, it overheated. As I was literally talking about overheating issues, it overheated. So I'm like, well, what that's a so better meta. Way? And that's where I use my phone, because I'm like,
So let me show you how to fix this.
Yes. And then I see from Jim, the Sony ZV-E10 overheats outside pretty easily. You can get a fan attachment for it, but it's so compact, it struggles to dissipate heat. I've heard that as well. But what I've learned is in the settings, and again, I'm not sure how well this is for camera health. They say it shouldn't do anything, but this is also from Sony themselves. So it's that situation of, yeah, they're going to tell you it's fine because they sold you the camera. I would look at other third-party tests to make sure, but I've had no issues with it, and it appeared fine. But again, we're talking about learning curves. That may happen on a phone, but it's a little more rare, I'd say. Is that fair to say, Stanley?
Yeah, so it does happen on the phone. I've had it happen multiple times. Filming out in the heat, doing what we're doing over here out in the sun. But it doesn't happen. It doesn't happen like this. Phones are intended. They're a little bit more rugged. They are intended to be used outdoors, walking around, in your pocket, and for extended amounts of time. So they cater to that a little bit better, generally speaking, I think. At least versus what I've seen with the Sony.
I agree in that. I also have to ask, what was file transferring like? Because I know how easy it is on a phone. You can set up a Google Photos account and get similar files. You could set direct from, with a USB cable. But I know when you start with a camera, it can be a little different. Even navigating menus, what was the process like?
I'll let you know when I figure it out. Because yeah, what I'm used to, with the phone, I film, I drop it in a KineMaster, I edit a video, and then I upload to YouTube, and that is my workflow. So with the camera, it has now been filming under select codecs and settings that, you have to have the ones that are acceptable for DaVinci is the software that I'm using. You have to have the ones that are acceptable for, I guess, file transfer. That was an issue that you and I were talking about one time. And then you have also the settings for how you were going to transfer it from the camera to the computer, because there's like
SD card slot, USB. There's so many ways.
MTSP differences or whatever. I don't even know what that term is. I forget.
You're talking about regional differences. So like if you're working with someone who could be in the EU or in Europe or different parts of the world, they use different standards. Shout outs to the people that don't use 24 frames per second. They use 25. I will say, or 23.97, which is technically not 24, but this is where I don't have a lot of pride these days in America, but I can have a little bit of American pride right now. We came up with camera technology. Everyone else is wrong. Yeah. That's my soapbox. I'll get off it, but let me have it. The world, we don't have a lot to be proud of in America right now, but let me have this.
I could sign off on that for sure.
I actually don't have that hot of a take, but I just thought that'd be a fun little moment. But no, those are real issues, especially you're not necessarily thinking about that on a phone.
No, yeah, not at all. I mean, on a phone, you have like your set, and I love the camera apps on the phone where you can sit there and dial things in. But once you learn to dial things in, then once you learn your triangle of your what's it called? Like you have your white balance and you have your you can't even do the aperture on the phone, but
you
have
can, but you have to buy other apps.
Yeah, exactly right. So once you figure that out, there's not a whole lot to actually change in your settings other than like, you have your focus. That's a real valuable one in those apps. Basically setting it on the automatic function is going to work for you very, very well. With some minor differences, but the oh shoot, I totally went. I had the images of that screen on the phone. I totally like just completely derailed myself. Sorry,
No, it's all good.
I lost track.
No, it's all good. I mean, we even have we talked about like recording limits. It's something Beanie and them are talking about. Luckily with the camera we bought you, it doesn't have recording limits. But some cameras have recording time limits. Like my G7, it'll break up my footage in like 5-minute and 59-second chunks. It can film up to 30, but it'll start breaking them up. And another thing that's nice about a camera, like if my SD card on my camera fills up, I can, put it out and wipe it. But on my phone, I don't know if you feel this, but deleting stuff on my phone feels a lot more permanent. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yes, it absolutely does. When we first started, so I had the Google Cloud and I would upload stuff to that to kind of protect my files if I ever needed them. But one of the things that I did learn with the phone that was great, that I loved about it, was that I had very limited memory on that very first phone. I don't remember what 256 or something like that. So I could not hold a lot of stuff on there. And I would film a video, edit it, and then wipe it every single time. Every single video. Yeah, so I kind of got into that mindset of like, this is all disposable. I'm not holding on to anything. And it's kind of freeing being able to do that.
Yeah.
I don't do it as much these days. I wish I could.
It also gets you in the mindset, which I've taught a couple of mobile creators this, and like just offloading to Google Drive, offloading to other places. And when you're doing that with the stuff, and it's funny, Jim's in chat because he's going to be dealing with some of the footage you have for a mutual client here soon.
I can't wait to see it, Jim. I can't wait to see it.
So Jim, I know you have an invoice in. I finally got approval. I just need our U.S. government, as I said, give me a win to reopen. If you're watching this in the future, please hope it's open for me. Right. I know it will be. But I also think that, that's another thing about when you're getting into it. You also have to buy an SD card, which is something we mentioned that used to be on cameras, on phones, and they kind of phased it out. But there are different SD cards. There's different things. I feel like there's a deep learning curve on cameras that you may not necessarily have had when you were filming on mobile. What has been the most interesting learning curve to you? You talked about there's a lot. What is like something that stood out?
All right. So one that stands out in particular, there was this time, the very first time I ever went live using this camera, and like 5 minutes before the stream, I was sitting there trying to figure out why the camera was dying. The battery was draining, and I'm sitting here playing with all this stuff. And it turns out that I had the wrong wire to plug it into the computer. So I ended up having to go live on that stream.
You were charging the computer, weren't you?
Yeah.
You were ending up charging the computer. Oh,
yeah,
no.
Right.
Oh, no.
No, that was right here, right before we started here earlier today, when you and I are sitting there like messing with the cables, trying to figure it out. Live happens, by the way. I say that every single live stream. Something is going to happen that you have to deal with. Just be ready for it. Mine was figuring out the difference between a regular USB cable for the camera versus a good cable.
Yeah. And look, good cables matter even for phones, like in charging and data transfer. So it's not a uniquely like that kind of camera problem. But I do have a question, and this goes for the audience. I'm using an iPhone 17 Pro Max because for what I do, it made the most sense to upgrade to. But what phone are you using currently if you're watching? Please share it with us. I'm curious. And has anyone here also made that switch from mobile first to phone? I have been going kind of the opposite direction, where I'm using my camera more. And so I'm using my phone cameras a little bit more. So I find it interesting. I'm telling Stanley to go all in on cameras, but I'm finding myself these days also equally using my camera more. And I think, you know, for me, there is some benefit in upgrading my phone where I did, because for social media and things like that, it became one of those things. Again, clients are like, hey, your phone is fine. Can you use our phone instead? So like, unfortunately, again, you have to have the tools your clients need. It was a need. Upgraded, it's fine. But I do think you should wait to upgrade until you're to a point, because trust me, and Stanley, we get it. Money is not always easily accessible. And some of these upgrades, I think instead of upgrading the camera, upgrade your mic first. Upgrade your lights first.
Yes.
I feel there are a lot of other upgrades. What would you tell someone who's thinking about upgrading their phone to a camera? What are the pieces of gear you'd recommend maybe before?
My focus in particular is audio. Like you can have, I mean, if you think about, if you were watching a video on YouTube, look at the size of that's like that's smaller than a business card. You don't need this to be 8K. But when you're listening to this had better be dead on. This video will only ever be as good as the audio allows it to be. I'm a huge proponent of not just, you know, don't just make the audio okay. You need to really make that your bread and butter. It needs to be good. The fishing videos that we do, you know, we talk about the underwater footage and stuff. One of the problems, like with a GoPro, that audio is horrendous. It's terrible. I do not use the audio from GoPros. I will literally engineer all of the sound from that from scratch. Every whoosh of the fish, every event that happens underwater, that's all audio engineered. That's all like put in, because I'm not going to have that crackly GoPro sound on the in underwater footage.
And I understand that. Like, again, we had a little bit of audio issues. I'll own up to it. It's because, you know, there are things like my audio levels are set perfectly, but there's been a Windows update that's been the bane of my existence, where it's like, despite everything you say, can I use it? And I will say that's something that's less of an issue I've noticed with using cameras, is they don't get as many updates. They'll get firmware updates and they can change. But sometimes, and I've had this experience, like the Photos app can change on you. The camera app can change on you. And you're also kind of at the will of the phone manufacturer you pick to decide when things go.
So that's why you go with like a 6 or 7 year old phone. When they stop updating.
They don't even update it.
Also, hey, Dylan, good to see you, man.
And I see from Livestream consultants, I totally agree. For audio first, lighting second, camera last. And I think that's something we should mention. And a lot of times what I find is on mobile creators is they start camera first, and then they'll upgrade camera first to the big camera. And it's like, actually, your camera was compensating for some of your audio problems and some of your lighting problems. And the thing is, when you get that upgraded camera, it's not going to compensate for it. It's just going to give you, it does have auto and it kind of can, but a lot of times people will notice it doesn't look as good as the phone because the auto is set to reach a standard. And if you don't understand what it's even trying to do, it can cause some confusion. That's something I remember when you got this camera. I was like, we got to go into manual mode. We got to go deep. We got to learn and lock in settings. And I will say, what has been your thoughts on the focus, right? Because you're doing a lot in manual focus. I know the phone has autofocus. What has that experience been like for you, Stanley?
Yeah, that's an interesting one. So I love manual focus. That just looks so good to me when you can really dial in the focus. And I love that. Now, I was able to do that on the phone as well, because they do have manual settings. And like I was saying a minute ago, I'm a big fan of filming with the manual settings on the phone. The other benefit of it on at least the phone that I have with the manual camera on and setting everything manually, that's the only way that I can use a Bluetooth microphone for filming on my phone. For some reason, just the regular automatic camera will not accept a Bluetooth microphone. So I don't know. I have not been able to figure that one out. And I just, I use the manual settings in that camera app to get by that. So it wasn't a problem. But I love the focus. I love that it is a bit of a challenge when you are filming yourself. If you don't have a camera person, I'm like that guy that in my den, I've got the gaffer's tape on the floor. I'm kind of tall, so the regular tripod doesn't work for me. So I have to actually set the tripod on a desk in order to get it kind of eye level.
We got to get you in the
I've got
creator app.
gaffer's tape on the desk for where the camera goes.
No, I think we got to get you in the creator app so that you can manually pull your focus. You can see it on your phone. See, this is another thing.
Yeah.
We gotta use your phone you gotta use your phone with your camera. That's another step that I find interesting. A lot of times, a lot of people will use an app for everything until it comes to their camera. And then I'm like, hey, why don't you use your camera app? There's a camera app? I'm like, why don't you think there's a camera app? You're a mobile first creator.
So the problem that I have with that, and I'm all about it. I want all the things. I want all the toys. But so since I have a primary camera for what we're doing here, that's an actual camera, it has allowed me to use the phone for other things like that. I use it as a teleprompter. I use it if I'm live streaming. This is my monitor so that I can see what's going on with the stream off camera, so that I can keep up to date and I don't have to be looking at the computer, while I'm doing it. So there's value when you do make that upgrade. Make that upgrade with the understanding that your phone is now, it has a different purpose. It's not that you're not going to use it. It just has a different purpose unless you drop it in the ocean.
I can't help you on that. And look, I see Kathy is asking creator app. Sony has their Sony creator app that lets you manually take control over the camera. You have to sync it, whether it's Bluetooth or Wi-Fi. And then you can control focus. You can control color. You can do a lot with it, actually. I actually use my iPad a lot of the time as a second monitor. So I'll have my iPad with my camera settings so I can see it blown up. Because it's actually, look, I love this camera to my left here. But, the screen is nice, but it's also quite tiny. And in fact, if I compare it to my actual phone, it's going to be a much different experience.
Yep.
So like you compare that to using my phone as a monitor, that's a bigger experience. And then my actual, iPad is much bigger. Now, one thing I like that you can do with both your mobile devices and sort of your actual cameras, and I'll go full screen, but Stanley, they can still hear you, is you can kit it out. You can also kit out your phone. So like, don't discount what you can do with a well-placed handle, some grips, putting this on a gimbal on your phone as well. It goes a long way. And, for mobile focused content creators, we also now one of the benefits of all of this is as I'm grabbing, and I'll have Stanley on screen so you're not seeing me struggle with a magnet. There we go. It's a good magnet. I barely could get it off, but we have mobile monitors now, which is incredible. The fact that I could see what I'm filming on my phone across the room with a mobile monitor, I love that. Stanley, how useful would that have been for you a couple of years ago?
I've got 1,000. I don't even know where to begin with. Thinking about how I would have used that back in the day, I don't even know. But I got 1,000 different things that I want to be using that for right now, this minute. As the guy who's on his phone while filming, you talk about second screen syndrome.
Yeah, people are. Well, I'm telling people to get an external monitor, so I'm telling them to get third, fourth.
Yeah.
People are like, reach for it, Andrew. I did. I forget how strong magnets can be. But people, like Kathy says, she always forgets to use the app. I really encourage you, if you're a solo filmer, especially, do not fray away from it. Because for me, that's how I've run my Panasonic cameras I still use. I use their app. And so it's interesting that, with mobile creators, I find they're so app first until it comes to their camera, and then they tend to forget about it. So I just wanted your perspective on that as someone, who is pretty much, there's an app for that kind of guy,
Yeah. And I mean, I'm blind. And also when I am reading a script for a video, then I've got, I've got all the stuff set up here. So I can't even see the monitor from the camera off to the side. So having that alternate monitor to be able to see, I can just see worlds opening up for me on that. And then also having something that I can use to replace my phone, maybe even upgrading my phone so that I can use this phone for as a monitor, and then the other one as my controller for Sony. There's so many things but so much potential with that I hadn't even thought of.
Have you tried doing a side-by-side shot of your camera and then your phone camera?
Yeah, I've thought about it. I hadn't done it yet. But yeah,
That
that's I've got a couple of videos that I'm working on. They're going to utilize exactly that for
good.
what you're talking about.
I see a comment here. I feel I tried filming follow and pass on my daughter as she was skating, and it was a pain trying to use the phone with just a strap. That's fair. Getting a
Mhm.
camera cage or rig for phones, like Small Rig is who I like to use. There are lots out there. Newer makes some, but there's a lot of gear out there that could definitely help on that.
Yeah, and
So
I have like the cage that I use for the phone.
also consider a gimbal. Like DJI has some
Yep.
really solid gimbals now. They're like $60. And
Yep.
they have, once again, there's an app for it. Their camera app's pretty good too. Like I've actually used my camera on a gimbal more lately, and that footage has been good enough where no one's noticed, and it really does matter.
Yeah.
Now you started with the S6 at 1080. One question I saw, especially in some of the Reddits and some of the conversations, is do I need 4K or 1080p? What's your thoughts on that, Stanley?
You need to know your audience. I
Mm.
mean, if you were filming videos that people are watching on the phone, credit card size, 1080 is going to be just fine. If you were doing a lot of live streams that if your live stream is the predominant value of your live stream is the conversation and the engagement that's happening right there, and people are watching it on their phone, then 1080 is going to be just fine for you.
Yeah.
Now, if you were doing something that requires vivid, beautiful cinematic shots, something that people might be watching on television, then you might want to lean a little bit more into the 4K.
Yeah. No, I think you got to think of where your viewers are mostly watching for. I think, especially one of the things we haven't even talked about is short form, right?
Yep.
Sometimes just filming vertically on a phone is easier than whipping out a camera setup.
Yep.
But there are some camera setups, like the camera we were using, the Sony ZV-E10 Mark II, where if you put it vertically, it actually changes its whole orientation to be in vertical mode to make it a little easier to film. And I think the industry in what we're doing and YouTube and all of it's changing so rapidly. But at the end of the day, we have more choice for how we film content than ever. And I think we as creators are the ones winning.
Yeah, you're absolutely right about that.
Now, Stanley, you have been active in this space for a while. You're now with us over at the KDCC. Where can people find you and what you're doing?
My YouTube channel that I'm doing some work so I can do with the KDCC and some stuff that I'm doing through various other outlets. That channel is Stanley Orchard Studios on YouTube. Of course, you can find me on LinkedIn. You can find me at the KDCC. Those are going to be the main places you're going to be looking for me.
You can also read more of Stanley's opinions in the blog linked in the description. And if you have any questions, please feel free to ask. We're in those comments. We're in that Discord. So we always are happy to see people, have you join us there. We're very active. It's funny. Anytime people join, they're like, wow, you guys are really here. And it's like, of course we're really here. That's what we're here to do. So I want to make sure that we talk about all those things. And I just want to remind everyone, a lot of people run YouTube like it's a single player experience. It really isn't. You should be in community. Don't do this alone. It takes a whole crew to make a movie. You don't need to be a single creator YouTube crew. You have people around that want to see you succeed. I promise you that. And so if you're considering upgrading or not, make sure you're actually using the camera. Test it every single day. Follow people like Stanley on his new channel, which we'll have linked in the description. And most importantly, do not fear, because at the end of the day, publish beats perfect every single time. So with that, thank you so much for watching, and we hope you have a good one.
Bye, guys.